यशोदानन्दना जयो व्रजजानरं जना जयो यशोदानन्दना जयो यशोदानन्दना जयो व्रजजानरं जना जयो यशोदानन्दना जयो जय यमुनातिलवनचारि जय कुञ्जविहारी जय यमुनातिलवनचारि जयो यमुनातिलवनचारि जयो कुञ्जविहारी जय जयो राधा माधव जयो कुञ्ज बिहारी जयो राधा माधव जय गोपीजनवल्लभ जय गिरिवरधरे जय गोपीजनवल्लभ जय यशोदनन्दन जय व्रजजनरं जना जय यशोदा जय यमुनातिलवनचारि जय कुञ्जविहारी जय यमुनातिलवनचारि जय राधा माधव जय कुञ्ज बिहारी जय राधा माधव जय कुञ्ज बिहारी जय राधा माधव Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Rama Rama Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Shri Shri Nitai Gauranga Bhagavan Ki Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanande Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're reading from Srimad Bhagvatam, Canto 10, Chapter 70, text number 9. Dadau rupya kuragranam Shomijina tilaisaha Jina alankritebhyo viprebhyo Badvam badvam dine dine Dadau rupya kuragranam Shomajina tilaisaha Alankritebhyo viprebhyo Badvam badvam dine dine Dadau rupya kuragranam Shomajinatilai saha Alankritebhyo viprebhyo Badvam badvam dine dine. Please chant. Word-to-word meaning, translation and purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace, H.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ji ki Jai. Prabhupada's disciples ki Jai. Start. Shauma. Dadau. He gave. Rupya. Covered with silver. Khura. Of their hooves. Agranam. The fronts. Shauma. Linen. Ajina. Deer skins. Tilai and sesame seeds. Saha together with Alankritebhya who were given ornaments. Viprebhya to learned Brahmanas. Badvam 107 groups of 13,084, thus totaling 114 lakh. Dine Dine each day. Translation. Each day the Lord worshipped the rising sun and propitiated the demigods, sages, and forefathers, who are all his expansions. The self possessed Lord would then carefully worship his elders and the Brahmanas. To those well attired Brahmanas, he would offer herds of tame and peaceful cows with gold plated horns and pearl necklaces. These cows were also dressed in fine cloth, and the fronts of their hooves were plated with silver. Providers of abundant milk, they had each given birth only once and were accompanied by their calves. Daily the Lord gave many groups of 13,084 cows to the learned Brahmanas, together with linen, deerskins, and sesame seeds. Purport. Sridhar Swami quotes several Vedic scriptures to show that in the context of Vedic ritual, a Badva here refers to 13,084 cows. The words Badvam Dine Dine indicate that Lord Krishna would give the learned Brahmanas many such groups of cows on a daily basis. Sridhar Swami further gives evidence that the usual practice for great saintly kings in previous ages was to give 107 such badva or groups of 13,084 cows. Thus, the total number of cows given in this sacrifice, known as manchara, is 14 lakhs. The words Alankritebhyo Viprebhya indicate that in Lord Krishna's kingdom the Brahmanas were given nice clothes and ornaments and were thus well attired. In Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Srila Prabhupada writes with striking and profound insight on these pastimes of Lord Krishna. The reader is strongly urged to study this book, which contains an invaluable wealth of information and commentary on the pastimes described in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagvatam. Our humble attempt here can never equal the consummate purity and skill of our great master. Still, as a service offered at his lotus feet, we are simply presenting the original Sanskrit text of the 10th canto, word for word meanings, a clear translation and essential commentary, for the most part based on the statements of the great spiritual masters in our line. We'll also read the verse 6. Athapluto ambasi amale yatha viti kriyakalapam paridhaya vasashi Chakara Sandhyo Pagamadi Sattamo Hutanalo Brahma Jajapi Vakyatha. The most saintly of personalities would then bathe in sanctified water, dress himself in lower and upper garments, and perform the entire sequence of prescribed rituals, beginning with worship at dawn. After offering oblations into the sacred fire, Lord Krishna would silently chant the Gayatri Mantra. Sridhar Swami points out that since Lord Krishna was in the disciplic succession from Kanva Muni, he offered oblations to the fire before sunrise. Then he chanted the Gayatri Mantra. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prasharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gaurathashe Namaha हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत श्री राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी श्री राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये नीलाचल निवासाय नित्याय परमात्मने बलभद्र सुभद्राभ्यां जगन्नाथाय ते नमः वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानन्द श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृन्द हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे मुखं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुदीनतारिणम् Hare Krishna. So I seek prayers and blessings of all the devotees so that we can speak on this section of Srimad Bhagavatam on Lord Krishna's daily activities. Best of all. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada mentions in the introduction of the Bhagavad Gita and says that all living entities have two psychic divisions. They have two psyches, matlab, two thought processes that always hover around in his consciousness. One thought process is to become a proprietor, and the other thought process is to become an enjoyer. And this is the foundation of the false ego. Prabhupada says that everybody in this world is trying to, amass, accumulate, and become a proprietor of something. And after you acquire it, then you enjoy. You cannot enjoy before you acquire, right? So, proprietorship and enjoyment, these are the base of the false ego. And the whole Varnashram Dharma has actually been designed in such a way that one can melt one's false ego, right? The way Sri Krishna has given us a process, the Bhagavad Dharma and Varnashram Dharma, right? Bhagavad Dharma is where we are directly able to connect with the Supreme Lord in a personal way by hearing and chanting. That is the Bhagavad Dharma. Srila Prabhupada, when he introduced the Hare Krishna movement to all the Westerners, what he actually gave in the beginning is Bhagavad Dharma. Chant the holy name, go for Sankirtan, read the books, read Krishna book, and that's all, right? Engaging. But after some time, Prabhupada understood that everybody will not be able to last on this platform of Bhagavad Dharma alone. Imagine everybody is told, what is the program today? What is the program? We will have morning program, and then 6 hours of Harinam Sankirtan. And when we come back, again, Gaurarthi, Gita class. And that's how you have to spend all your day, all your week, all your month, all your year. How would it be? Maybe some would survive and the others would be thoughtful. So Prabhupada mentions Krishna as also given Varnashram Dharma, which is engaging our conditioned nature in service to the Lord. But we know they are conditioned with the modes of material nature, which promote proprietorship and enjoyment. So it's like using the venom to remove the poison. Right? Makes sense? Somebody is bitten by a snake. You really have to confirm properly before you give him the anti-venom. Otherwise, the anti-venom can become the cause of the death of the person. His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj was explaining, just like you need a thorn to remove a thorn. So if imagine there is a thorn in your feet, so then you need something like another thorn. But sometimes in the effort of removing the thorn, the second thorn also may get inside. And you may end up having 100 thorns. Alright? So the process of Varnashram is meant to be able to engage our conditioned nature in such a way that we are able to free ourselves from our false ego and become attached to Krishna as well. That is the whole process that it should be. Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyasi. That is the process. And Lord Krishna, he mentions in the pages of the Gita, in the Karma Yoga section, he says, "O Arjun, I do not have any duty to perform. Natasya karyam karanam cha vidyate." Like, I do not have any duty to perform. I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead. However, I perform my duty so meticulously because, Arjun, if I would not perform the duty, then the whole society would lead to irreligion. They will say, if the Lord is doing it, then we can follow. Yadyadacharati shreshtas tattad evataro janaha. Right? Sapramanam kurute lokastad anuvartate. Right? The whole world is going to follow my example. That is why, Arjuna, I am performing my duty very, very best. So he says to Arjuna, you also perform your duty with detachment. Right? You do not perform duty with attachment, but perform your duty with detachment. So you will not get entangled and thus receive perfection. So we find that Prabhupada mentions in the Krishna book that one should learn from the example of Krishna, Lord Krishna's daily activities, of how a grihastha should perform his duties. But Prabhupada says we cannot imitate Krishna. So what would it mean by follow Krishna's example but not imitate Krishna? He says Krishna could do it with 16,108 wives at once. So you couldn't do that. You can't imitate that pastime. But you imitate pastime of Krishna in one palace, he says. At least what Krishna is doing as an ideal grihastha, you should follow that. So we find the Supreme Lord, Shri Krishna, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, showing us examples of how to be an ideal brahmachari, how to be an ideal grihastha, how to be an ideal sannyasi, vairagya, at every level that is being taught, right? And who could be a best teacher? It's like the very person who has made the system shows you how to use it. Who could be better at it? Isn't it? So that is why learning from Krishna's example is the most authoritative way of understanding of how to apply the Varnashram principles, engaging our conditioned nature in service to the Lord. Right? For example, if someone is in the brahmachari ashram, at the Guru's ashram, the pages of Bhagavatam mentioned in the 7th canto, it is 4-5 chapters speaking about the various duties. So, how does a brahmachari deal with his false ego? Right? How does a brahmachari work on his false ego? He says, Brahmachari Guru Kule Vasandanto Guror Hitam. So he says that brahmachari has an understanding that I'm a servant of Guru. Acharan dasyavan nicho guru suhrada sahurudam. So he has a clear-cut understanding that I am servant of Guru and all my activities are supposed to be for his pleasure. Then he goes for Bhavati Bhiksham Dehi. And when Bhavati Bhiksham Dehi is done, everything he brings, he gives it to the Guru. And whatever Guru gives him in return, he will take it. So his proprietorship comes from, like, he has no proprietorship. Everything he has, the Guru says, he has it. If the Guru says no, then no. That is the training of a brahmachari. That's how he is taking care of his false ego. You know, you understand that my Guru is the object of service. He is the enjoyer because he's going to engage everything in Krishna's service. He is the proprietor. So whatever you collect, you give it to him. So that is the consciousness of a brahmachari. If a brahmachari thinks this is mine, then that would not ideally be the brahmachari ashram's consciousness. He always is, okay, I have it in care. You know, we have a habit of writing in care of. In care of. So the Guru has given me in care. And after some time, and you do not have any papers on anything, right? You don't have any papers or bond that I'm in this service for this many years and nobody can do anything, or this is my room and I have my papers. If someone tells me to get out, then I can show the papers and file a suit. It's just no, momentously things could be told and you're ready. You know? So he's saying that's how a brahmachari would lead. Even if a brahmachari is like the head of the whole community or head of a temple or whatever, still his proprietorship is that because the Guru has told me to be here, I am there. You know, Radhesham was once explaining to me in the Swaminarayan temple, uh, when they built the Delhi temple, which is like Akshardham. It was made by this Pramod Mahajan. Yes, that person, one of his main follower. So when the Akshardham temple was made, it is said the person who actually worked the most to make it happen, right? He was a sadhu of Swaminarayan temple and he erected it and made it. And just the day before its inauguration, which was like a event waited for everyone, and everybody would want to know who is the person behind the scenes. You know, it was this person, you know, sadhu, maybe Pramod Mahajan. And he said, a day before the inauguration, when the Prime Minister is to come, he is to come, they are to come, he was told by his Guru that we have another assignment in another country, you need to go. And we will handle the rest. He said, just the day before the inauguration, he took a flight and went to another project to start from scratch. Right? His Guru didn't allow him to bask in the glory of having made Akshardham and now it's done. So that's like meaning no proprietary rights. You're told to hang around and help others hang around. And tomorrow you're told, now hang around somewhere else. And let those who are hanging around you be hang around here. He says, okay, Guru Maharaj. He says, that's the melting of the false ego for the brahmachari. If he can do that, then he can deal with his ego. Right? So every ashrama has a program of how you melt it. Right? Another aspect, because as a brahmachari grows up, then not necessarily the spiritual master is always behind. You know, it's like at a grown level. Then how do you deal with the false people? Prabhupada says that cooperation. When you cooperate with other men, other brahmacharis, he says that melts the ego. If somebody says, no, no, I will have it on my own, I will have my own party, I'll have my own place, and I'll have my own program. Yes, you can have your program, but you won't be able to melt your ego. Maybe the ego will become more stronger than what you began with. That's what is going to happen. So we need to do both the programs very well, the Bhagavad Dharma and also the principles of whichever ashrama and varna or what we are actually performing. So that's how a brahmachari practices the process of offering service. Now, when it comes to the grihastha ashram, as we see here in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam, uh, for a brahmachari, the ego is that everything belongs to Guru. But for a grihastha, that's not his ego. For a grihastha, the ego is everything belongs to me. Because until he considers everything belongs to me, he cannot take care of it. Just like in an ashram, I remember very old, there will be a discussion, If you have a place in the ashram which belongs to everyone, right? So the care and attention and the maintenance of that will not be so much at one level. Because no one has any proprietary over that. But if you have an identification that this is mine, then you give full attention and care for it. So I remember once a senior devotee was speaking about this. You can understand by the difference of, the ashram bathrooms and the grihasthas bathrooms, right? The ashram's bathroom has one quality, and if you go to the bathrooms of grihasthas, they are like immaculate. I remember once, because preaching to the various business class of people, one of the person had a bathroom which was like 300 or 400 square feet, and it was air conditioned, and there was no water drop anywhere. You know, it was a big mirror and alishan. You could spend a day. Why? Proprietorship. When you feel it's mine, then the consciousness gets into action. So the Grihastha's mentality is to acknowledge this is mine, this is my wife, this is my children, this is my home, these are my people. And then he offers it to Guru and Krishna. Right? So Brahmachari, Vanaprastha, Sannyasi, detachment. Grihastha, attachment and detachment. Huh? Or detached attachment. So the program is difficult. Right? The program is difficult. So Krishna is living the program to show how to do it as a principle. So we find here in these pages of Bhagavatam so much, like before Krishna is doing his Sudharma Sabha and various activities, he is like get up early in the morning. Then he does meditation on his own self. We studied, I think, yesterday. Then what does he do? Uh, Bathe in sanctified water, dress himself in lower and upper garments, and uttari, and perform the entire sequence of prescribed rituals, beginning with worship at dawn, offering oblations into fire. Lord Krishna would silently chant the Gayatri mantra. So one of the aspects for the grihasthas is to offer oblations into the fire, perform yajna. Now performing yajna means offering food grains, ghee, milk, all these items to the fire. And what is fire? The mouth of Vishnu. So basically, when you perform a sacrifice, when we offered a yagya here, what do we say? Idam hi Vishnu, idam na mama. No? Like that, all the mantras you will see is idam hi, this personality, idam na mama, idam na mama, idam na mama. Because already you have a strong proprietorship. Now you have to undo it and engage in Krishna's service. So you begin with that aspect. Idam na mama, but idam hi Vishnu, idam hi Krishna. You keep offering. And you offer real time things. Ghee, that's the essence of the milk, and the grains, you offer oblations. Thus acknowledging everything belongs to Vishnu, and I'm offering it back to Vishnu. Yagyarthat karmano yatra lokoyam karma bandhana. Anyatra lokoyam karma bandhana. If a person does not perform yagya in his life, then he will become implicated by karma bandhan. Everything in his life should be a yagya, which means offering for the satisfaction of the Supreme. But then one may say, yes, Prabhuji, I am studying for Krishna, working for Krishna, earning for Krishna. Right? Everything I am doing for Krishna only. Like, whenever I meet people and tell them, yes, Prabhuji, hum Krishna ke liye sab kar rahe hain. We are doing everything as worship for Krishna. But how is it happening? Are you offering the result of your work, the fruits to Krishna? Right? Just like when you work hard for a family, you offer the fruits to the family. How? For their living, for their enjoyment, for their maintenance. You are doing. So working for family makes sense. But working for Krishna, how does it make sense? Is it like, you put a photo of Krishna in front and, working for Krishna? No. Prabhupada says that one has to offer the fruits. Unless you offer the fruits, because he says praner arther dhiya vacha. Either you offer your pran means you offer your whole existence for serving Krishna like a sadhu, or you offer artha. So all your pran is engaged in making artha. So your artha is as good as your pran. So if you offer artha, that means you offer your prana. So he says that would mean you do it for Krishna. So you perform sacrifices, yakya, at that level. So Prabhupada says, in Kali Yuga, who will perform sacrifice? Who will throw ghee? Who will throw grains? They don't have enough or whatever. It is very difficult. So Prabhupada says, in Kali Yuga, one should perform Sankirtan Yagya. One should organize people to congregate and do kirtan. And at the end of the kirtan, there should be prasadam distribution. If you do this on a regular level or maybe on a daily level, then you are performing yagya as a grihastha or as every individual who would perform. That is the Kali Yuga counterpart. Actually, Prabhupada says that there is dhyana in Satya Yuga, there is elaborate worship in Dwapar Yuga, there is in Treta Yuga, and Dwapar Yuga there is Yagya. Sorry, Treta comes first, right? So Treta is Yagya, Dwapar is worship, elaborate worship, and Kali Yuga is Harinam. Everything is to please the Lord, right? The purpose of all the four, according to time, place, circumstance, is to please the Lord. So you perform Sankirtan Yagya. Prabhupada says, Yagyai Sankirtana Prayer Yajanti Hi Sumedasa. So every person should perform sacrifice. Just like in temple, every day we are performing sacrifice. In the morning, in the evening, there is devotees coming together and then there's prasadam distribution at all the time. So this is the first thing we see Krishna is doing, beginning with worship in dawn. And then offering oblations, and Lord Krishna would silently chant the Gayatri Mantra, which actually signifies the person acknowledging the Supreme Lord's proprietorship and Supreme Lord's involvement for the success of everything. So a person also understands that whatever I am able to do, it is because of the Supreme Lord's empowerment. That is the inner meaning of these mantras, right? So not only the result that I am getting is Krishna's, but even the endeavor is actually by Krishna's empowerment. That one acknowledges. Each day the Lord worshipped the rising sun and propitiated the demigods, sages, and forefathers who are all his expansions. Prabhupada says this is a process called tarpan. You know, you people they see the rising sun and they offer water. So that's called tarpan, offering and giving pleasure to the sun. You chant the mantras. Actually, you glorify the sun, glorify the demigods and the forefathers, and you offer tarpan. You give them pleasure. Now, how is that connected to the practice? He says that actually you understand that these are all the limbs of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because it is very easy to understand that the sun is providing us heat and light, and sun is providing the energy, sun is providing us the health. So all the energy that we use is coming from sun, right? So when you're offering, it is very easy to see that manifestation of Krishna coming through the sun. So you're acknowledging and being grateful to the gifts we have received. By worshipping the limbs of the Supreme Lord, the Devatas, and the forefathers, and the Pitri, everyone. Prabhupada says that how everyone has caused, like we are all able to practice a tradition and culture in our life. Why? Because our forefathers made the tradition. You will see the culture we are a part of is the inertia of what has already been set by someone. Imagine our families were not cultured and did not have tradition. How difficult it would be to perform our normal activities. Yes? It would be very difficult. Right? In India, Prabhupada mentions, people are trained so much in culture and tradition, that if they touch a paper which may have something atheistic written, still you will take your hand and put it on your head, like offering worship that this is Saraswati or something like that, right? But he said in the Western civilization, they do not have this kind of respect for things. They have switches below. You use your feet for the switch, right? You know, Even if you want to move something, you move with your feet. How does it matter whether you move with your hand or feet? So he said Prabhupada would not easily recommend deity worship for the Westerners. But for Indians, even if they were new, he would say you can worship. Because in India, the tradition, if you touch a paper, you put it on, put it like on your head. How would you worship the deities? Even if you're not a great devotee, like you just begun a devotee. But a Western civilization, even after practice, may not get into that culture immediately. So that is how the forefathers have contributed to the tradition and culture that we are part of. So we offer gratitude. Right? So that is the first function. After acknowledging gratitude to the Lord, you acknowledge gratitude to all those who are immediately making it available in your life. Right? You acknowledge gratitude to the sun, to the Jai Shri 𝐂𝐻𝐌𝐌𝐔𝐍𝐈𝐓𝐽. Right? So that's a very important program. As the beginning of the day, we should keep offering gratitude. That's how as we get up in the morning, what is the first thing we do? We offer gratitude to spiritual master. We offer gratitude to Srila Prabhupada. We keep offering gratitude. So we offer gratitude to maybe all the devotees, for the devotees who are dressing the deities, for the devotees who are cooking for the prasadam, for the devotees who are maintaining, for the devotees who are securing, for the devotees who are like, at every level we can offer gratitude, and you begin your day with that, offering gratitude. And that gives pleasure. That gives pleasure to the forefathers for having acknowledged. They don't need anything in return, but if you acknowledge their contribution in your life, the elders become enlivened. Right? They become enlivened and they'll bless you. So Krishna would offer such respects to the demigods, to the sages. The sages are the ones who are giving us the culture. In this way, the Lord, after chanting Gayatri, would offer gratitude to all the limbs of the Supreme Lord. And then the Supreme Lord, what would he do? Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha Jagadhitaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namo. Then he would give donation, charity of the cows to the Brahmanas. How many? 13,084 into 107. That is 1.4 million cows a day. And what kind of cows? Their horns are gold plated, their hooves are silver plated, and they have silk robes embroidered, and they have pearl necklaces. Anyone having a pearl necklace? Maybe even having one pearl. And all these cows had pearl necklaces. One of them. And Krishna would donate 13,084 into 107 every day to the Brahmanas. And Prabhupada says that the Brahmanas were well attired. Even the Brahmanas were given enough, you know, clothes and silken robes. And they would be given linen. Linen is grains, rice, and other items, deer skins, and sesame seeds for doing yagya, I believe, and doing other aspects. So Krishna would first provide for the Brahmanas. So Prabhupada explains, right, that in any yagya, at any place, first you should feed the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. After feeding the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, whom should you feed next? He says the old men and children. He says then women, and then everyone else. That's how it should be. So the first aspect goes to the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. Because, because the Shastra explains, the Lord says, I eat more pleasurably through the mouth of the Brahmanas than the Yagya Ahuti you perform. So the easiest means to satisfy the Lord is to satisfy the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas. And technically in the Vedic times, Brahmana meant a Vaishnava because they are Brahmajanati. They're completely doing, karma activities which are completely imbued with devotion and activities. So first you give to the Brahmanas because it's going to the Supreme Lord. Radha Prithu Maharaj says that actually the whole kingdom and the property of the king belongs to the Brahmanas. And the Kshatriyas are just caretakers of the Brahmanas' property. Why? Because it's Lord's property which is put under the custody of the Brahmanas. पिता का लड़के को मिलता है ना, तो Brahmanas and Vaishnavas are children or like the closest to the Lord. So they actually have proprietorship of all the property. And the Kshatriyas are supposed to take care of the property, understanding it belongs to the Brahmanas. So giving to the Brahmanas is not like you're doing a favor, consciousness. It says giving to the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas means it is kind of Kshatriya paying due tax or whatever. It belongs to them, so it has to go to them. No, there is no second thought about it. Dena hai ya nahi dena hai. right? He gives it, right? And in this way, he acknowledges. He acknowledges that everything belongs to the Lord, everything belongs to the limbs of the Lord who are providing for. And in this way, he can make his consciousness detached from the proprietorship. You know, in the Bhagavatam, it explains that if a person who is in the Grahast ashram, if he can detach from his wife and children, he says he can conquer the Supreme Personality of Godhead at once. He says like that. Because it's not easy. When you're not attached and you're detached, you do not understand what is the game. But when you get into it deeply, and then you have to get out of it, it needs a lot of substance. Needs a lot of substance. So Krishna is therefore giving so many practices he would do. And then Krishna would do Panchashuna Yagya. Krishna would then feed, then he said, Panchashuna Yagya has 5, reciting the Vedic rituals, again oblation to the fire, waiting for guests. There is a time you allot for the guests to come and you wait for them and you feed them. And then you feed all the others. So others means other living entities, but he says even feeding to the animals. So I was kind of studying the Bhagavatam to understand what time he started his job, what time he went to Sudharma. The whole process of yagyas and this and that. Obviously, in the dawn, you cannot perform Panchashuna. The guest will not come at 4 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock. So he has to wait in the midday. So it seems like he must be going to Sudharma like later in the day, like before the midday for sure, you know, by performing. So starting from 4 to 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock and things like that. And that way. So by doing that, you spiritualize your consciousness. Idam na mama, idam to Krishna, idam na mama. Matlab, by doing it consistently for a big duration, it sticks to your consciousness. Then through the day, you can work with detachment and as service to Krishna. Otherwise, if you do not have that practice of doing what Krishna is teaching, then we already have attachment, and in the day we will increase. And every day will keep increasing. So, I want to say, then we got into the game to get out of the game. Right? But then there's no getting out. It's like getting stooped inside. So then that ashrama does not remain ashrama. It becomes a medha. It becomes like an entanglement. So everything can turn from ashrama to entanglement if you do not properly uh, play the function of that ashrama, right? I think he said, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur spoke about Mathamedi also. A brahmachari ashram can become Mathamedi. Just like there's Grihamedi, there's Mathamedi. So at that level. So what Krishna is teaching us in these pages is one needs to perform all this so that one will become detached and will be able to take responsibilities with detachment. So now, how do you translate that in Kali Yuga? Should we start Agni Hotra Yagyas or should we start this and should we start that? Right? Srila Prabhupada is the Acharya through whom we receive the essence of all the Vedic scriptures. So Prabhupada has designed a whole morning program from 4:30 to 9:30 or 4:30 to 9. And we don't know what Prabhupada has put in, but he has put in whatever is needed. So if you're doing all the aspects, and it's effort. If you're doing all the aspects, then when you come out after 5 hours of sadhana, right, then you experience some level of detachment. Idam tu Krishna, idam na mama, and then you perform your activities. And it's very interesting that even after having done so much sadhana, we become affected by the modes. Then imagine not doing sadhana and what will happen. So at least you'll understand you got affected. But if you're not doing, you would never understand also they're getting affected. It would be normal. Right? So this is a program what Srila Prabhupada has designed for the whole world. Prabhupada said, either live in a temple or make your home a temple and follow what I am teaching. Then only it will work in its place. So Lord Krishna is very mercifully enacting this pastime. Now, He is the Supreme Lord. He is the proprietor, He is the enjoyer of everything. But still, He is practicing the Grihastha principles as if training Himself in detachment. Early morning, immediately He would leave the cozy bed and perform the sacrifices. He doesn't need to. He will not get karma bandhana. But still He is doing. Why? Out of love. Out of love for all the conditioned living entities, to teach them to be able to come back to His lotus feet. So the motivation of Krishna is love, right? So we see through the pages of Bhagavatam and emulate the principles what Krishna is telling, right? Similarly, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, if you read the sections of Antya Leela of how a sannyasi should be, how a sadhu should be, very, very strict. So we learn a lot of principles, and they are our main role models to emulate in our lives. So if you follow the programs that Prabhupada has given us very, very minutely to the best of our capacities, then we are going to fulfill what Krishna is living according to Vedic principles. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Shri Krishna Bhagavan ki, Srimad Bhagvatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveta Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bo. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.